I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
He's retired from the ATF. He investigated some of the deadliest hotel fires in American history, plus the loss of 6 firefighters in a Worcester fire, his investigation, and the long-term effects on him. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. In the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, the realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. There's a couple ways you can stay in touch and keep informed of what's going on with the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Number one, go to our website, letradio.com. Sign up for our email newsletter. It's real easy to find. I promise we don't spam you. I send out about one email every 2 weeks or so. And there's also a feature called broadcast channels on our Facebook page where we send messages directly to your inbox, directly to your messenger. Real easy to sign up for. Make sure you like or follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. And up top, you'll see broadcast channels, one for free podcast versions of the radio show, another one top post of the day. So you too can stay informed quickly, easily, and best of all, like always, free. Joining us on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we have Wayne Miller. Wayne is retired ATF, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and he is also one of the movers and shakers for a website called burnbostonburn.com. Wayne, thanks for your service. B, thanks for being guest on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Both very much appreciated.
I appreciate you having me.
By the way, ATF, I was a Baltimore police, and I was detailed at DEA for a little over, I'd say almost 2 years. And we did a lot of work with ATF, and I was deputized as U.S. Marshal. And the ATF is one of the, I think, one of the least understood organizations out there, but they have a great reputation, especially for street policing. You know,
ATF couldn't exist without state and local police officers and firefighters. They absolutely need each other in order to exist.
And by the way, they hit the street a lot. That was one of the few organizations where they were active. You saw them all the time. Them and the U.S. Marshals, they had different jobs, and we're going to talk about your job a little bit, but they had different jobs, but they were out there all the time.
You know, you see them more than ever on TV. Even the other day with shootings at night, in the middle of the night, you see ATF police jackets out there all the time now. We try to respond. We make relationships with state and local guys who give us a call, and we hit the streets.
How long have you been retired from ATF now?
I'm afraid to say how long. This is coming up on my 25th year retired.
By the way, you're like me. You're what we call a dinosaur, and I'm a knuckle-dragging Neanderthal 5-0 cop, and I don't care.
You know, it flew by on the job, and it flew by even faster off the job.
And here's the thing about, and I got to ask you this as a question. So sometimes, you know, I feel like I'm really damaged goods from policing. And I got hurt and retired in active violence. I retired very young. I was 33. My real problem started when I say things that quiet. But sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. Sometimes it feels like another guy. And sometimes it feels like yesterday.
You're absolutely right. You know, I do a lot of speaking events now all over the country. And When I talk about certain fires, like the Worcester Warehouse, the Worcester 6, when we lost 6 firefighters, when I was out in Wisconsin, 250 fire investigators. I'm going down the aisle, just talking in between the tables, and I get to a certain point where they show an engine that is covered with flowers and personal signs. And something like it just breaks me down. In Wisconsin, I had to turn around and go back to the podium and compose myself.
Right. No, I get that, and right. I'm a private guy to begin with. I think a lot of men are. I'm not going to let you see the emotional side of me, but there's stuff going on now. And when I get emotional, I get you don't see me at all.
Yeah, I mean, that was unusual for me. But it is one of the fires that hits me straight in the heart. I carried a gun for 25 years, but I worked fire investigations for 19 years with ATF and another 17 on the private side. So I'm very close to firefighters, and I end up, my second marriage of 30 years now, I ended up marrying into a firefighter family where my father-in-law and brother-in-law were both captains on the city department, and my wife lived through a fire before I met her.
When it comes to fire, see, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, a lot of people focus only on the firearms. They don't look at bombs, they don't look at explosions. And by the way, there was a documentary series on television about the Atlanta Olympic bombing, and it was solved by ATF, if my memory is correct.
Well, competition between the FBI and ATF, it goes on forever. But the ATF agents did not believe that Richard Jewell was the bomber. I was there myself. I was there at the Olympics picking up evidence pieces at 3:30 a.m. And I went to my first autopsy. I was on the job for 20 years before I went to an autopsy. And they selected me to stay with the evidence. And yes, so when you watch some of the documentaries and movies, don't believe Richard Jewell did it. Go with some of the gut from the ATF agent who was featured in that film.
And by the way, most films, and I'm no stranger to what Hollywood does, they'll usually take, like, I'm retired from the Baltimore Police Department. They go, oh my God, is The Wire really like how it is? I'm like, yeah, somewhat. But they'll take like 6 or 7 people and combine them into one. And was that the situation with that?
Not in the documentary portions. But when you watch some the movies, yes, they do that, and they did that, yes.
And I think that's for traumatic license. It's for a lot of things. It's time savings, and it's also for legal protection. But one of the things I have a lot of police on, and when I say police, that means federal and state and local and sheriffs and state troopers, you name it. They'll write books. And have you thought about writing a book about this?
About which?
About any of things that you've done.
Oh, absolutely. I've already, I have 2 true crime books and 1 fiction, but it's a serial arsonist murderer, which is right up my category anyway.
Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. So let's just say this. Again, a lot of people love to lump ATF into one category. And quite honestly, I really don't know the first thing about arson or bombing or fire, but that's kind of your specialty. Is that something you chose or it fell in your lap?
No, I did some undercover work my first 4 years, and I did gun cases my first 4 years. And I lucked out through relationships that I got a 46 M16 seizure here in Massachusetts. But after that, I just didn't really want to do gun cases anymore. So Boston started a ATF arson task force, and I volunteered for that because I just thought it would be a really nice niche where you go out and interview on any one case. You interview from a cabbie, first eyewitness, firefighters, police, insurance, homeowners, building owners, that type of thing. So I knew that was good. And then I became a certified fire investigator where I became an expert on the actual scene work, figuring out where and how the fire started. and it's a puzzle every single time, and I love it.
It's very challenging. I don't know. I said I'm a street cop. I don't know the first thing about it, but they would have accelerant detection dogs. They would do everything. And I look at these burned out hulks of buildings and say, and quite often there were fatalities, and say, good luck. I don't know how you, and they will piece it together. So we're talking with Wayne Miller, is retired ATF, and he specialized in fires, which we'll talk in a few moments. His website is burnbostonburn.com. That's burnbostonburn.com. You can get information about his books right there on the website. This is the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. When we return, we're going to talk about the Dupont Plaza Hotel fire in Puerto Rico in 1997. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Of all the radio stations in the United States, there are no other shows like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And on Facebook, there's only one official page. Do a search on Facebook for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And be sure to like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. Return to the conversation. Wayne Miller on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Wayne is retired ATF, and he is also an author. He's got multiple books. You can find them online. His website is burnbostonburn.com. That's burnbostonburn.com. Way back in your career, first of all, when did you start with the ATF? And you said you retired 25 years ago. So I'm not that good at math. When did you start? When did you retire?
I started as a baby, came on at age 23 in 1976.
Holy cow.
And, and I retired in 2001. So it was 25 years and a week. The extra week was because of the pay period ends, you know.
I hear you. In 1976, guess where I was?
High school?
Graduating from high school. Hey, I'm an old-timer, but I'm not that old. Man, you've seen a lot of changes in your years of between 1976 and today. I'm sure things are totally different.
Besides ATF moved from Treasury Department after 9/11, they're now in the Justice Department. So they concentrate on different things like terrorism, still on gun cases, but the arson work has fallen a little bit by the wayside. They still have certified fire investigators around the country, but they don't have the arson task force cities like we had when America was burning.
And by the way, in the late 70s, early 80s, it was a very violent time for police. It was a very violent time. Lots of explosions, lots of bombings, lots of fires. People think things have gotten bad lately. I'm telling you, they were bad back then.
Oh, yeah. We just in Boston bombed the courthouse. Who had the Sam Jackson, something, Melville, arsonists and bombers. They were protesting just the way the government runs, just like they do now.
And so you were how long were you in the job when you got sent to the Dupont Plaza Hotel fire in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, I mean, that is one of those horrific ones that people tend to forget about years later. But, it happened on New Year's Eve and up to 1986. And fire happened in the afternoon, and we got phone calls. I was on the national response team, and there were 4 teams in the country, Northeast, Southeast, Midwestern team, and Western team back then. And they called us up a little after 5 p.m. and said, you got to get to Puerto Rico. So I was on an 8 a.m. flight on New Year's Day. That changed your New Year's Eve plans.
Right.
And I was on an 8 a.m. flight, and we had about 18 ATF people there working side by side with Puerto Rico police and squad. And FBI, 97 people died in that hotel. 87 of them were all stacked right in front of one 36-inch doorway trying to get out of the casino. So it's pretty horrific when you see a pile of 87 people with varying degrees of burn. They weren't supercharged, and I don't want to get too gross. And so the FBI and Air Force teams recovered the bodies one at a time, making sure they got the personal effects with them. while we did the fire origin and cause with the local authorities. And, you're in that hotel, and every single step we took, by the way, was in asbestos back then. And asbestos is a cancer-causing agent.
Right.
And, so you don't realize when you're working, you don't think of it when you're working until later on. But I was interviewing a employee of the casino. I had an interpreter with me, a police officer, and we recorded his interview. And we're right in the casino area at the time, and he's saying we had no training whatsoever. There was no alarm systems. There's no sprinkler systems, and the smoke was starting to come into the casino, and nobody knew what to do. They all stayed there because you got money on the tables and stuff, and they didn't know what to do. So this guy, he trying to make his way to that one doorway where people trying to get out, and they ended up closing the doorway because the flames went through the lobby in front of the doorway, and you couldn't go that way anymore. And he said it was like every person fighting for themselves, and I was swimming through the people, and I called to my friend, and I'm just going to say Julio. I called to him. He's about halfway down the casino, and I call, and all of a sudden he ignited from the waist up in flames because the smoke layer, that's the science behind it, but he ignited from the waist up. And the guy I was talking to was still completely broken up about it. He lived because he ended up going out the floor-to-ceiling window, but he didn't know how he got out. He said, I don't know if I got pushed or jumped about 16 feet down. And he lived and he didn't get burned, whereas like one guy jumped and he turned around to catch his wife and flashover occurred. Flashover is when everything in the room catches on fire, the flames, the smoke layer, and his wife was in that window permanently until she was removed by the recovery team.
And this was in 1986, and you said 97 people were killed in this fire.
Yes.
And how many bodies were there at the doorway trying to get out?
Almost all of 87.
Oh.
I mean, there were people. They had employees in the little locked bank area inside, where you could cash in your chips,
right,
and stuff like that. And they finally let themselves out of there, but they didn't escape the room. And that smell of dead bodies, I'm sure you were around a couple. But with the burn and everything else, it went in your nostrils, and just I can smell it today when I think about it.
We will return that part of the conversation in a few moments. What was the determination for, and you were there for 8 days, what was the final determination for the cause?
Yeah, I mean, in one sense, it was pretty easy. The South Ballroom was about 100 yards away from the casino area where the people died. But in that South Ballroom, they had an employee meeting, and they were going to go on strike. And the meeting broke up around 3 p.m., so 3 employees went down. They took 3 Sterno cans, the cans that you put under your food to keep it heated up.
Yeah.
And they threw them into a pile of brand new furniture that was still in boxes. So you had a large fuel load.
We're going to take a short break on the note. We'll return to the conversation in a few moments. We're talking with Wayne Miller, retired ATF. He is also an author. You can find multiple books at his website, burnbostonburn.com. That's burnbostonburn.com. If you want to be a guest on the Law Enforcement Talk radio show, simply contact us. It couldn't be easier. You can send us a message on Facebook. Look for and like the Law Enforcement Talk radio show page, or email jay@letradio.com. That's JAY@letradio.com. This Law Enforcement Talk radio show. We'll be right back. Are you a fan of true crime shows? How about True Crime with a Twist? People that actually investigated crimes, what they did, what they experienced, all for free. Just go to our website, letradio.com. It's L as in Lincoln, E as in Edward, T as in Tom, radio.com. Return conversation with Wayne Miller on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Wayne's retired ATF. He's also written multiple books. You can find them at his website, burnbostonburn.com. That's burnbostonburn.com. Before we went to break, Wayne, we're talking about the Dupont Plaza Hotel fire in Puerto Rico. And you said that 3 employees, they're having a meeting about going on strike. They took lit sterno cans and threw them into a pile of new furniture with boxes, and that's what started the whole fire?
Oh, absolutely. These guys didn't understand the power of fire. And there had been a couple nuisance fires that week because of the employee problems. But when they did this pile of furniture was almost 8 to 10 feet high by long. And when they put the lit flames into the fire, into the fuel load, it took off into a raging fire that went through the south ballroom to the north ballroom, and it just picked up every combustible along the way. And then up the stairway, there were 2 doors to the casino. It was a horseshoe-shaped casino, and the first door was closest to where the fire came up the stairway, so they closed that door first, and then it blew right across, right through the lobby. You know, they have open places down there, and it just trapped the people in the casino.
So what were the employees that did this? Did they get out alive? Did they get arrested?
Not only did they get out alive, they confessed to their crimes and confessed to 97 counts of murder, and they ended up in prison almost for life initially. They were very religious people that did not realize what was going to happen with how they set the fire.
I always said this, that there are lots of guys in prison, and guys, that means men and women in my world, that 90% of them, I'd say 95% of them, if it wasn't for alcohol or drugs, wouldn't be in prison. The other ones, they make a bad decision, which sounds like these people did. They were good people. And then the very small percentage are career criminals that can really ruin your life.
Right. And, you know, these guys were so sorry for what they did. I mean, they just never imagined that they would kill people like this. They just wanted to hurt the hotel itself and, you know, get bargaining chips out of it.
I understand.
You know,
I understand their motivation totally. I don't agree with how they did things, but I understand. I want to shift your attention a little bit to, and we're talking about the long-term effects on you, the 6 firefighters in a Worcester fire. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I can. December 3rd, 1999. About 5 p.m. or so, a couple homeless people who had been living in a cold storage warehouse. Now, this warehouse was almost 100 years old, and they had 18-inch thick walls because back then they didn't have refrigeration for the meat and stuff like that, so they put ice in there, and they kept the meat fresh.
Right.
2 homeless people were living on the second floor of the 6-story building. And they had a little tussle between the male and the female who had been dating but recently broke up, and accidentally knocked over the candle that they had in that one bedroom that they had. That one room used to be an office. They had trash all over. They didn't pick up after themselves, so there was papers and things like that that caught on fire when they knocked over a candle, and they left, never reported the fire. So there's no windows in this place. It's boarded up, plus it was cold storage, so they didn't have windows.
Right.
So it took a little while for the fire to keep out, and by the time the firefighters got there, it was a raging inferno. And they sent firefighters in to see to the fire. You have to fight it somewhere. So 2 firefighters up, they don't even know what floor they were on. They were buddy breathing. That is when you share your one oxygen tank because one's run out of air. And then radio silence from those guys. They just disappeared. The chief sent in 2 men to look for them. And again, you got 4, 5 floors that these guys have to look on because the first 2 floors weren't on, the bottom floor wasn't on fire yet. And this building was huge. So when they sent the other 2 guys in, they just disappeared off the face of the earth. And then 2 other firefighters went in on their own, which really isn't what they're supposed to do at all.
Right.
And they eventually got lost in the fire, too, and perished. So the chief was one of the most courageous people you'd ever meet. He stood at the bottom of the stairway and said, I'm not going to lose any more. Nobody else. I know you want to recover. I know you don't want to leave anybody behind. And everybody understands that, especially the firefighters who were there. But he had the biggest to stand there, and it haunted him the rest of his life, but he had to do it because they were gone already.
This is what you call, I'm not trying to belittle this at all. That's really tough decisions, because my natural instinct is I want to rescue, I want to preserve life. And I know firefighters are the same thing, but to say that's it, no, you're not going in, and it's not popular, took a lot of you-know-what.
Yeah, he's a hero, really, saving more firefighters. This building had so many rooms to it. They had a big room where they stored maybe beef once upon a time, and another smaller room where they had pork or something. It was divided up into a massive place with multiple rooms, and it's pitch black, and it's full of smoke. And that's another thing that happened. All of a sudden, the chief was up there trying to yell for his men and stuff like that, and he said the smoke layer went from my face down to my knees in a matter of seconds because something changed with the fire. More fuel kicked in that wasn't burning rapidly. It was.
So we'll take a short break on that note. We're talking with Wayne Miller. He's a retired ATF agent, and talking about the Worcester fire that 6 firefighters were killed in, and he is an author of multiple books. You can find them on his website, burnbostonburn.com. That's burnbostonburn.com. Do you want to be a guest on Law Enforcement Talk Radio show and podcast? It's really quite simple. And before you get into this notion that I'm not a cop, I wasn't a cop, I don't have something to contribute. Well, the show is about investigating crime. That's one aspect of it from the real life perspective of those who did it. And then it's also about trauma, how trauma impacted them. Often crime-based, but not always. Our guests quite often are law enforcement officers, other first responders, military, victims of crime, their spouses, or survivors, talking about how trauma impacted them, what happened, how it affected their lives, and how they rebuilt their lives after. If you want to be a guest, just contact me. It's really simple. Send an email to jay@letradio.com. That's jay@letradio.com. Or go to letradio.com and the Contact Us page. And you can get me right there as well. Mr. Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. We return. We're going to talk about the long-term effects on him and more. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. How would you like to improve your health? Let's get healthy. Tips you can use today for free. They don't require any money at all. You can download a free ebook, 15 Tips to Improve Your Health, at lethealthy.com. That's lethealthy.com. Again, it's lethealthy.com. And let's get healthy for free. Returning our conversation on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show with Wayne Miller. He's a retired ATF. That's Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, a federal agency. And he is an author of multiple books. You can find them at his website, burnbostonburn.com. That's burnbostonburn.com. You're one of the investigators in the Worcester fire, where Worcester, Massachusetts. I'm proud of myself for say the right way, and I'm not from Massachusetts. But I took a lot of practice. Wayne, to be honest with you. And you're one of the chief investigators on that, and it's bound to have long-term effects on you. Before we go into that, when we took a break, you're talking about the cause of fire, and the chief said no more losses, and he had to be haunted by that.
Yes, he was interviewed 10 and 20 years after the fact, and you could see it when you watched it on TV, in his voice, in his face, how it affected him forever.
And the truth is, it sounds like it's affected you. And then earlier in the conversation, you talked about doing a court, and you had to recollect yourself because you were getting emotionally moved by this story.
I responded that night. And as soon as I saw a break into TV that they had some lost firefighters, I quickly responded. It's about 40 minutes from where I live. And I was there for the next 10 days. And I'm one of 3 people that ended up writing the report on this fire. But as I looked at these firefighters trying to recover all 6 bodies, and you looked at their faces, and they were raking and sifting, looking for buttons from the uniforms. You could see the anguish. You could see how tired they were. Yeah. You could see how despair. And that's what I looked at every day. And when they had a memorial service, they filled an entire 15,000-seat auditorium.
Wow.
And the president came, vice president came, governor, that type of thing. But the firefighters were assisting for 8 days looking for these bodies from all over New England. And it's the one that just absolutely hits me. They had these signs on this fire engine that they had as a memorial, and the sign says, "Firefighters saved my baby," some fire in the past. They are true heroes for our children and stuff like that. And it cracks me up. It just makes me, every time it just makes me shake.
Yeah. I get that. I understand. And by the way, firefighting is one of the most dangerous jobs out there. On almost every scene, every fire, whether there's a fatality or not, someone gets injured. And cancer's a real issue with firefighters and have been since I was a rookie.
Yeah, they're building new firehouses around the country because of the cancer that you mentioned. Trying to separate the diesel engines and trying to separate the clothing and boots that they wear from their sleeping specs.
Yeah, I'm not an expert, but and one thing I hear quite often from firefighters is head and neck cancer, and it's got a lot to do with the equipment they wear.
Yes, and the foam that was used and what's on their uniform, what's on their turnout gear is what caused a lot of these cancers. And it just takes generations to start realizing it and make changes.
So I got to ask you, and by the way, when I was a rookie police, the average life expectancy for Baltimore police at that time was 52. Now it's like 58 for American police, and the average life expectancy for American men is 73. Firefighters, they go through it. They lose their lives very young.
My father-in-law passed away from leukemia, cancer caused by the fires he went to, and so did my brother-in-law, and both of them were early 70s, yeah. And both of them had cancer for several years before they died.
Got to ask you this question, Wayne. It's impossible to go through a police career, and I throw the feds in there as well, and not get dinged up emotionally, mentally, physically. How would you describe your state of mind? If you're like me, you do your best to put that in the past, but how would you describe your state of mind from everything you've been through?
Overall, I'd say it's pretty good, except that, you speak to other people and you learn a lot about what you went through and how it affected you. And I'm telling you, writing the books was very cathartic.
I'll bet it was. That was the next question I was going to ask.
Yeah, it helped me get things out from inside and put it down on paper.
One of the things I found for me is I think a big source of my frustration is trying to get people to understand, and they can't understand, so I don't explain anymore.
Yeah, that type, the life of police and fire is unique, and you watch, again, you mentioned Hollywood and stuff and what they do with movies, but you always see like the divorces and stuff, and I went through a divorce 30 plus years ago, and the alcoholism rates and stuff like that, and suicide rates is just so high because outside people don't understand what law enforcement and fire people go through.
I had a guy on the show's retired FDNY, fire department, and his brother was retired FDNY, and his brother died by suicide. His mother, when he was a young firefighter, died in a house fire from falling asleep with a lit cigarette, which we don't have anymore, but back in the day, that was commonplace.
Oh, very commonplace, and they still blame some fires on careless handling, improper handling of smoking materials. It still happens fairly regularly, even so cigarettes are supposed to self-extinguish these days. Not all of them do. Not all of them do.
And by the way, there are certain hazards you can look at, and I've become, I want to say, paranoid my old age, but Christmas trees, other things, furniture, it's fire retardant, but it's not like not as combustible as the old days, but still no guarantees.
You don't want to be at one of my training sessions where I put every single household appliance. I have a picture of each one, and I explain how each one catches fire. And when I go away for a few days, I even unplug my microwave. And I only have one power strip in the house, and that's made of metal, not plastic, folks. You should have me come and do a demonstration about household
Great.
fire.
Now you got me thinking I need to replace all those power strips. Now I'm going to get metal ones.
Spends $20 or more, a little bit more than $20 instead of $2.
So you've written several books, and you said they're cathartic. What are the books you've written, and people can get more information about the books at your website, burnbostonburn.com?
Well, my first book, Burn, Boston, Burn, is the title of the book. It's based on what was called the largest arson case in the history of the country. 264 men, including 3 firefighters and 3 cops, burned 264 buildings in a 2-year period in and around Boston. We had a tax-cutting measure that slashed fire department budgets, and they said if we set enough fires, people get rehired. And it was a heck of a case that lasted about 3 years total. And that particular story has been picked up for a documentary, which should be out later this year, and a motion picture.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's cool.
I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity here. I'm not talking to one of the Wahlbergs.
I'm going to be an executive producer. That's my new career.
There's no talking to me from here on out. And what's your next book?
Well, the second one is Bang, Boom, Burn, because the 46 machine gun case I had in 1980. There's couple gun cases. There's 2 bombing cases. That's the boom portion. One killed a Boston police officer. The other one is absolutely insane. 50-year-old guy dating a 30 American Native Indian woman. And her family didn't like the guy, so he devised 6 Christmas packages that he sent. 4 of them exploded, killing 5 people.
And your last book, what's the name of that one? Very quickly.
I switched to fiction, Flames of Secrecy. It's a psychological thriller about a serial arsonist murderer who only targets women because of mommy issues. And
by the way, Wayne, is that fiction based on your experience?
I didn't have an actual case like that, but yes, you get to see the fires set, investigated, and you see profiling, all from my background. And you can find more information at his website, burnbostonburn.com. Wayne, thanks so much for your service, and thanks for being a guest on the show. Very much appreciated. I loved it. Thank you for having me. Of all the radio stations in the United States, there are no other shows like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And on Facebook, there's only one official page. Do a search on Facebook for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, and be sure to like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. A huge thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast version of the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, by the way, which is a nationally syndicated radio show. And we broadcast on over 115 radio stations across the United States to more than 44 million combined population. If you like our show, there's 2 simple things you can do. Go to our website, letradio.com. Add your favorites. Check it often. You can find episodes of the show right there. And the second one involves our Facebook page. It's so easy to find great content, including past episodes of the show. And when you see something that you like, that resonates with you, be sure to share it with your friends. We'll be back in just a few days with another episode of the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.